All right, guys, welcome into the Gashouse gang alongside Matt Pauley, who's down in Jupiter, so we're not really alongside. And not really alongside Bernie either, even though we're in the same general. I don't know if we're in the same zip code, Bernie, but we're in the same city. So
same city for sure.
Bernie's in the Bernie Cave. Matt's down in Jupiter. I'm here at the KMOX Sports Office. Great to be with you guys. How are you guys doing, man? I know that, Bernie, you and I, if we've gone anywhere near the outside, we're freezing our asses off. And Matt's out here in the sun, putting on sunscreen with palm trees and live BP.
It is only 72 degrees. The sun was not out today. There was a wind. Like a lot of people were wearing long sleeves.
Soft. It's only about 60 degrees colder here right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, we all love, obviously, this time of year, that we know the good stuff's coming around. The regular season's only 6 weeks away. We got our first exhibition games today. Got first Cardinals over the weekend. And let's just start with kind of there, Matt. Not the games themselves, but like just what's the buzz today in camp? We're going to talk about a couple things that were buzzy yesterday, but what was the buzz today when the manager spoke?
Yeah, today was actually more about optics because they did all their workouts inside of Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium, and we talked to Ollie inside of the home dugout. So it was the feeling of being closer to baseball being played when you're in a baseball stadium watching things happening and you're in an actual dugout talking to the manager. That feels like baseball. That feels like games are being played. So I didn't think, Ollie spoke this morning. I didn't think there was anything groundbreaking. We're at the point now where it's just sort of the daily minutia that is 6 weeks of spring training. But man, it felt good to be inside a ballpark for sure.
It's always awesome. So let's talk about a thing that came out of yesterday, because we haven't had a chance to get to this yet. At least the three of us haven't. But one of the buzz topics yesterday was Willson Contreras, and apparently he's hit the gym. Matt, you were telling me last night via text that he's changed his body. Is he noticeably bigger and stronger? Is it like something you as soon as you see him, you're like, oh man, that's different?
He looks trimmed down, and he also looks more muscular for sure.
Okay.
He gained 12 pounds, and the fact that he looks trimmed down and he put on 12 pounds, I think that says everything that you need to know about him. Sometimes you want to have a little extra weight on you when you're a catcher. It just kind of helps you survive a season. So I think he changed his body. It's like an actor who changes how they look based off the character.
He's got a different role.
Yeah, he's got a different role now. He's a first baseman. He's not a catcher. And he remade his body to go along with that in the offseason. And good for him for doing that.
Bernie, I hate to bring up the best shape of his life story, one of those big baseball cliches. I don't want to really go with that, but considering the move to first, the need for power, the fact that Willson has already had power. Like he's already a 25 homer guy when he's only playing 130 games because catchers get so many days off, 120, 125, 130 games. Do you think there's anything to chasing power, good or bad? Like, do you think there's downside to it? Or is it a good thing for him to be doing?
I'm not sure. I'm really undecided on that. First of all, maybe being lighter and a little stronger, maybe he'll be quicker on his feet. He'll be more nimble at first base. He'll be more agile and all that stuff. Okay. But I don't really understand when I was reading a couple stories about this, how he's bulked up. He wants to hit for more power. This dude, since he came to the major leagues in 2016 through the end of last season, he was basically led all major league catchers in everything. And he hit for mad power with a big slugging percentage. So what I'm trying to say is, I don't know. I didn't realize there was anything to fix. And I do realize hitters are always looking to improve. I get it.
Yeah.
But his stats as a catcher translate very well to offensive stats at that position at first base. And sometimes I wonder if guys overthink this a little bit. You know what needed to be fixed? It isn't his physique. It isn't his bulk. It isn't his strength. It is what needed to be fixed is he needed to play more ball games.
Yes.
So this is kind of like one of those spring training stories where I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Is he going to play 130 games now? That's all I'm interested in. It really is.
No, it's a good point. I like it in the sense that he's dedicating. Like, I like it when I hear anything about a guy busting their ass to get better, right? Even if it's not going to make that big a difference.
Right.
You look at his batted ball numbers, like last year's the first year we had bat speed data. He's in the top 10% in Major League Baseball in bat speed. He's been a guy that's been top 10 or 15% in average exit velo for at least 4 years. Like, he already does those things. And when you look at it, Bernie, I mean, like, in recent years, last year he missed a lot of time with injuries, so he didn't get the at-bats. But in 2022, 2023, in only 400 plus at-bats, 20 home runs, 22 home runs, that's a lot. And if you push that up to 520 at-bats, that's a 30-homer season, or at least close to it. So I think you're right. I think the key is how many games can he play? And maybe the different approach to his body is another thing that can help him stay on the field, even though we know last year's injuries were just getting hit with a bat and things like that.
And if we can put Josh's comment back on the screen, because I think, and I really appreciate Josh watching the show. It says, for folks on the radio, it says, since Contreras has moved to first base, he needs to hit for more power, given he's now at first base. Josh, thank you for the comment, but like, you're wrong, because his power numbers as a catcher translate just fine to first base. If you take what he did, and Kevin, you just went over the numbers. If you take what he did as a catcher and then you extrapolate it over 150 games or so, he's a elite offensive first baseman. That's not something that he needs to do.
No, when Bernie, when we did this, when we talked about this at the time the position change was announced, we talked about how if you look at his numbers the last 2 years as a catcher and you compared them to all the first basemen in baseball, he would have ranked in the top 5 or 6. He was right there with Matt Olson in terms of actual production, like weighted runs created plus, OPS plus, things like that.
Yep.
So he already was producing at a high end for a first baseman.
I got the number that sums it up, and I can be brief with it. The last 3 seasons, Major League first basemen as a group were collectively 10% above league average offensively based on weighted runs created plus. Over the past 3 seasons as a catcher, Arenado was more than 40% above league average offensively, based on all of his work.
Right.
So even if he doesn't, let's just say he posts let's just say he's 40% above average offensively, which would be in his range through his career. Let's just say if he's 40% above average offensively this season, that'll be 30% better than what the norm is at first base collectively among all the people that play the position. So here's why I love the fact he's at first base. And listen, it'll be a work in progress, and we all know that. Over the past 3 seasons, which includes his final season with the Cubs, he's averaged 70 starts and 606 innings behind the plate. And Oli Marmol and the Cubs, before that, they've used him as a DH, and for whatever reason, and I think it's kind of random, his numbers as a DH weren't anything like what they are as a catcher. I don't think that's a thing. I just think it's one of those weird things.
Yeah.
But 70 starts and 606 innings behind the plate with some DH at bats mixed in. I mean, this guy's got, forget about, and the power we've already talked about, but let's not forget about his on-base percentage and how many walks he draws. He has got a fantastic walk rate. His OPB is outstanding. There's so much that he can do, but the number one thing he can do is play about 135, 140 games, and at first base, it'll be easier to do that.
Absolutely. It's the Gashouse Gang with Bernie Miklasz, Matt Pauley, and Kevin Wheeler. It's brought to you by Game Day Men's Health, my buddies. Oh, wait, hold on. Can't see that. There you go.
Yep.
Logo on the shirt. And obviously, Saliga Heating and Cooling. Bernie, tell us about Saliga.
I'd love to. I'm sorry. My eyes are like giving me fits today. If I'm looking weird in the camera, I apologize to everybody.
All good, man. Anyway, I look weird every day.
I know, man. Saliga Heating and Cooling has been taking care of St. Louis family since 1927. It's an independent American standard heating air conditioning dealer, and they can do it all for you, and they've been doing it all for St. Louis and since they opened doors down there on Gravois in South City, and they're still in the same headquarters back in 1927. We've been with it for 16 years, and we can testify to how great they are. Their reliability, their knowledge, their dependability, their honesty. There's no hustle. There's no trying to talk you into anything. In fact, they've saved us money on numerous occasions. So they're just an outstanding business. And the one thing I would encourage you to do, you go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com and look at their Priority Club. It's a maintenance program, and the benefits are numerous. We're in it. I highly recommend it, and you'll benefit from it. It's Saliga Heating and Cooling with that American Standard equipment. Go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, and the phone number is there for you. Thank you.
All right, so let's continue the conversation. And I was going to bring up something loosely along these lines today, because just before the show, I was on Twitter, and I'm seeing little videos from all over Major League Baseball, from spring training, live BPs, and little commentary like, "Hey, this guy looks really good. Oh man, look at that. He's got some real life on his fastball." And Bill asked a question like that. He said, "Have you watched live BP, Matt? And who impressed the most as hitters and pitchers?" And it brought this topic to my head. So, Bill, thank you. This is not to dump on your question or to be a jerk or anything, but I was thinking earlier today that like people trying to draw conclusions from live BPs are really doing themselves a disservice. Like, it's impossible to tell. It is absolutely impossible to tell because, you don't know what the pitchers are trying to do. You don't know, for a hitter, I mean, God, they're already behind, and you're going to be facing some guy who's throwing 97 with movement, and you haven't seen that since last season. I used to fall for it all the time. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like, first couple of spring trainings, I'd get down there and I'm like, oh, my baseball eye tells me that was a good bullpen. Like, yeah, the reality is you can't tell. Unless you're catching it or throwing it, or you're analyzing the slow-mo video or whatever, unless you're Dave Duncan, you're not really seeing much of a difference. And I remember I asked Dunk about it, Bernie. I can't remember what year it was. It might have been 08, 09. I asked Dunk about a bullpen, and he's like, man, I'm not here to evaluate bullpens. Because I'm not here to change mechanics or anything like that. I mean, we're just getting ready, man. And then you can either get people out or you can't.
The only the only batting practice in my career, which has been going on a long time now, the only batting practice that ever mattered, ever, was Mark McGwire before games in 1998. Other than that, it's trivia. I don't care.
The only thing I would say, first off, I don't think
it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
At this point, there's nothing we can learn about pitchers. Like, most of these guys are taking the mound to face hitters for the first time or the second time. They're just getting loose. They're feeling their arm. There's absolutely nothing. It's fun when Lars Nootbaar hits a 450-foot home run, but that doesn't tell us anything because we know he could do that. But I do think, Nolan Gorman, he made tweaks during the offseason for the way he's hitting. Can we look at what he's doing physically, whether it's the way he's holding the bat or anything like that? Is there something to be seen just to evaluate the changes that were made in the offseason? There's something there. Now, trying to take that one step further and say, is it going to work or not? No, you cannot get that out of a live BP.
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to see the physical difference, but you can't tell if it's going to matter.
Right.
The real baseball starts March 27th.
Yeah, I mean, look, to a degree.
Look, wait a minute, hold on a second. I don't mean to be a grouch, but it's just that every spring training, and maybe it's just I've been on the planet for too many of them. Every spring training, it's like this nonstop torrent of this kind of stuff. And
yes, it is.
I'm like, okay, let me look at my calendar. Okay, March 27th. That's when it matters. Before that, other than people getting hurt, you really hope no one gets injured.
Yeah.
And you hope that guys that have a chance to make the team, pitcher, position player, I think it's in their best interest to put up numbers in spring training. But I also think the media gets too carried away with that. But yeah, I'd like to see younger guys that are trying to achieve something to make a mark. I like when they put up numbers in spring training, but that's where I draw the line. Other than that, it's not that important. You want your hitters to be confident. You want your pitchers to be confident. But that's all about preparation. And even if they're confident going into the regular season ain't the grapefruit league. So,
Right.
I was
everything's taken with a grain of salt. Yeah.
So I was talking about that a little bit with Claves today because the fences have been brought in at Roger Dean Stadium. They've moved the bullpens from down the lines and they're now beyond the outfield, and that's resulted in them coming in. This has been very much a pitcher's park. Their Cardinals were the last team to hit a home run in all of spring training last year. let guys feel good about themselves. Bring those fences in, let them hit some home runs, let them think that they can do that when the regular season games get started. I don't want pitchers giving up a bunch of home runs, but I do think there is some value in having some confidence and actually hitting a ball over the wall every once in a while at a home game in spring.
Am I crazy, or should you want your spring training facility to mirror your big league dimensions?
Yeah, 100%.
Because the Astros have that in Palm Beach. I know the Yankees have that, right? Steinbrenner Field has the exact same dimensions as Yankee Stadium. That's the only way that a guy's going to be totally comfortable. I think they move those fences in, guys, more for the A-ball players, because that's been one of the toughest places for those guys to play in the regular season, where you get these guys that are, in low A, 18, 19, 20 years old, and everything they hit's a fly out to the warning track.
Hey, can I correct myself, please?
Sure.
I said that McGuire taking BP in 98 is the only batting practice that ever mattered. I got to correct myself, because a really cool thing happened in 2001. Albert Pujols was in spring training with the Cardinals, and he was taking like maybe his first batting practice, first or second. And I'm standing behind the cage with Tony La Russa, and Pujols is bombing baseballs. Back then it was the Montreal headquarters beyond left. He's bombing one baseball after another into that building. I thought he was going to start busting the roof open or something. And I've told this story before. Tony La Russa, who knew about Pujols, really hadn't seen it. He was making animal sounds every time that Pujols hit one of these rockets, where you're he was going it's like growl, or he's growling, and I said, Tony, I gather you're a little fired up by this, and he was like, oh man, it's unbelievable, So that one mattered a lot.
Sure,
that was the only time. I'll be honest. So again, see, I'm correcting myself, so I'm not a total grouch. That was the one time where I really do think, and granted, we have the benefit of hindsight, but I really do think, because he was incredible in the minor leagues the year before that. It was the one time where you just saw that and you said, this guy, given what he did last year, this guy's ready for the majors right now. This wasn't like some fringy guy who was just having a good day taking BP, right? Anyway, I just wanted to update that. So so I wouldn't be totally grouchy. Anyway,
that's all right. The last time a BP thing stood out to me, I don't remember exactly what year it was, but it was before Giancarlo Stanton was a big leaguer. It was actually probably before his rookie year, when he was called Mike Stanton. And Matt, and Bernie, you've been there, right? Behind center field at Roger Dean Stadium, there's a cement pathway, and there's kind of some space between that and the batter's eye, right? The batter's eye is not flush with the fence. The batter's eye, what would you say, Matt? It's 20 feet back from the fence, something like that. It's, it's more than a sidewalk width. It's maybe 15, 20 feet. And I'm walking back there to go to the broadcast truck, and I hear a loud crack, and I look up, and the ball hits the top of the batter's eye. So this is 20 feet behind the 400-foot fence, about 40 feet up, and that's where it hits, and it comes down and almost hits me in the head. And I'm like, oh my God, is somebody hitting fungos from second base? And I stepped up. There's like a little power thing you can stand on there to see over the fence. So I climbed up and I peeked over, and it's Stanton just taking BP. And I'm like, man, I don't think I've ever seen a ball in person like that up close hit that far. That was insane.
And he probably got hurt right after.
He went right on the injured list. It's exactly how it goes. All right, it's a Gashouse gang. Bernie, Miklasz, Matt, Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here. Of course, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling and Game Day Men's Health. I was just at Game Day today, by the way. Such a cool, relaxed place. Everybody there is, and I think what's interesting is you see people that are all different kinds of people. There's super fitness people. There's guys that are 25, guys that are 65. It's a really cool place. So just check it out. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. They do phenomenal work. If you don't feel good, you can feel better by going and working with some of the pros. I wanted to bring up Ivan Herrera, because we talk a lot about his importance, and we know that if he plays well defensively, he's probably going to play a lot, right? Because he can hit. We already have established that. And I'm fascinated on a number of fronts and this was probably maybe late last week, Matt, that this came up. But Herrera spent some of the offseason at Driveline to work on arm strength. If you looked at the catcher throwing velocity from last year in Major League Baseball, he was in the bottom 10, 12. Like he was definitely, I think he ranked like 40th amongst major league catchers. And if there's improvement on that, because he was not that much different from Pages when it came to his numbers on blocking and receiving and things like that. It was more the throwing that was the big problem. I really admire guys. This is kind of along the lines of the Contreras thing. I really admire taking the bull by the horns, but I was texting this with Matt last night, and I'm thinking, why doesn't the team have that ability to take a guy and say, you know what we're going to do this offseason, Wilson? We're going to get you with a couple of our guys, and we're going to get you in there, and we're going to improve your arm strength. I think it's really crazy that a major league player still has to go to Driveline and pay their own way and do all that rather than teams having it. But either way, I'm really hopeful for that, because if that improves even a few miles an hour, if he gains 2 or 3 miles an hour, you go from the bottom of the league to above average that fast.
Yeah, the two things there I think are both interesting topics. First off, if you can just throw an 800 OPS guy into the middle of the order, that's going to help you out. And that's what Ivan Herrera is. So you do anything and everything you can to get him into the lineup. There's a short list of guys that I'm really curious to watch once these games get started on Saturday. And he's on that list because it goes a long way towards the Cardinals being a good team this year if Herrera can be good enough to put behind the plate a lot, where he gets more starts than Pages. And this is not I really like Pedro Pages, and it's both ways, just from calling the game and just everything. He's a great guy to have on this team, but Herrera is an impact bat. He just has to be good enough defensively to be put back there. And to the point about the offseason stuff, and guys are always going to have their own coaches and the third party things and things like that. But unfortunately, the Cardinals have been in a spot where a lot of the stuff hasn't really been made available to them at the complex. So they've almost been forced to go to the drive lines of the world. I think that's changing. I think what's going to happen now with the new facility is they are going to give guys every opportunity to be able to come to Jupiter and have that right here. So we can complain all we want about how it has been and how it still currently is until they get done with this project. And it is a very legitimate gripe, and it's something that should have never happened. But at the very least, that is changing, and I give the Cardinals credit for that. And then guys are going to have the choice. Do I go to Jupiter and work with the Cardinal stuff, or do I still go to Driveline? Do I still head to Vanderbilt and use their pitching lab? So those are going to be choices, where right now the choice is either do nothing or go third party.
See, Matt and Wheels. See, I think stories like this are really meaningful because, listen, I want to make sure I say this right, because every time I refer to fans growling about something, some of my great people that subscribe to the Bernie show on YouTube, they fuss at me, and they should. They say, you make it sound like all Cardinals fans are like that, and they're not. It's just we tend to hear from the malcontents who, like, Matt Pauley's talked about it. There's like nothing John Mozeliak could do. Nothing. Everyone would just say whatever he does is garbage, even if it was great. So they're the loud element. Okay, so I just want to say most Cardinals fans are very reasonable, but I still get feedback, a lot of feedback about, well, what is this thing all about? See, this is DeWitt. He just wants to save money. That's all. That's what this is all about. This some guy told me the other day, like, if I hear one more time about this minor league and player development restoration, I'm just going to barf. I'm just so sick of hearing this. This is all a big scam. It's all because they want to cut payroll. And you know what's sick about that? Believe it or not, it's easy to say, well, that's one guy. This kind of stuff is like wildfire in our culture today. Not just sports, everywhere, right? And then, like, some people see that and then they start to believe it. Yeah, he's got a point. No, he's not. No. The fact that Ivan Herrera has had all this hitting talent and really just a very, very impressive, athletic, imposing man. And the fact that no one in that organization at any time said, I think he kind of doesn't throw the ball very hard. Maybe we ought to work on this. Let's get the catching instructor. Oh, that's right. We don't have one. And yet people think that this is some kind of Bill DeWitt conspiracy to justify a lower payroll. I don't think he would have went to all the trouble of hiring Chaim Bloom and Bloom hiring all these people And I don't know the exact cost of this, but it's pretty significant because I'm told they're actually adding more to what they originally projected. But I don't think this gets enough attention. I don't think there is a great enough appreciation that this had to be done. It's long overdue. And frankly, it was embarrassing. And when they were at the head of the curve, way up top, and having the best facilities and the best system and the best minor leagues and the best teachers, that's when the Cardinals were great. And we in this world, and I'm guilty of it too. The only thing that matters is like what happened like a day ago. And it's just like, if you have any historical perspective at all, a guy like me is really, really excited about this. And it's not because I want to praise Bill DeWitt. In fact, I've criticized Bill DeWitt for letting this happen. There was no excuse for that. But I'm glad that he's doing this, and it's a very important thing. And then maybe Jordan Walker, the next Jordan Walker, will come to the big leagues, and he'll actually know how to play right field. Instead of, I felt bad for the kid. He wasn't ready. The organization failed him. They didn't give him enough time, enough teaching to play right field. This is a positive thing, but the Herrera thing, I'm so glad you brought it up. The Herrera thing just gives you an anecdotal evidence of how bad this has been.
Yeah, but I still think I'm glad they are going the right direction. So again, this is more kind of following up on what you're saying, Bernie, is you don't need a brand new facility in Jupiter to do the things we're talking about.
Right.
You can do them in your own backyard. I watch high school and college guys do this stuff in facilities all over St. Louis every offseason.
But they need a brand new facility for other reasons.
For sure, yes,
yeah,
100%. They need to catch up with the rest of the sport. But that thing being delayed and that not existing is not an excuse for being hands-off with player development in the offseason.
Right,
Jordan Walker can go catch fly balls and fungos in Jupiter without a new facility. Ivan Herrera can do an arm strengthening program without being in a laboratory.
Right.
There are a lot of ways that this works. And to me, and this is, I'm sorry, this is going to be a little bit mean, but it's being corrected so we can be happy about it moving forward. But the Cardinals have felt like, the boomers who need their adult kids to teach them how to use a smartphone. Like they just never did these things. I like, why? Why is it hard? Why is it hard to see, wow, we could really improve that guy's arm strength? And boy, there are 100 different ways to improve arm strength. Long toss, heavy balls. You can get into the lab and figure out body motion. You can look at their kinetic chain and see if things are happening. I've done this thing with teenagers. I've been able to, I can't do it for a guy like a big leaguer. I've never done that. I'm not claiming to, but there are places and buildings and people, and you have the access to some of the greatest minds. You have access to Tom Pagnazzi and Mike Matheny and all of these different people that have come through the organization, Gary Bennett. And I don't understand why it's in this place, but thankfully, as you guys point out, thankfully it's changing. Just hopefully it doesn't impact this year negatively, because I would hate to see Ivan Herrera sitting and playing 2 games a week instead of playing 5 games a week because he can't throw people out.
He put in so much work. There has to be fruit on this one.
I would think so.
Yeah, this has to bear fruit.
Yeah, and keep in mind, too, like the difference between a guy who ranks in the top 20 and a guy that's in the bottom 20 is 2 miles an hour.
Right.
You can absolutely get 2 to 5 miles an hour in an offseason without too much difficulty if you do the right things. So hopefully that worked out, and we'll see a lot of Ivan Herrera. All right, we're going to change topics here in a second. It's the Gashouse gang, Bernie Miklasz, Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler. And before we do that, though, before we change topics, Bernie, tell us again about Saliga.
Salee Heating and Cooling has been taking care of our family for 16 years, but man, they've been taking care of St. Louis family since 1927. It's an amazing success story, and the same family has continuously owned the business, and they're an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer. I do want to tell you very briefly about the Priority Club. Become a member. We've been members for a long time, and it's really paid off for us. There are a lot of benefits to having a maintenance program called the Priority Club. They come out and check your stuff a couple times a year, make sure your heating's working great, your cooling's working great, and that it gives you peace of mind. Everything's safe. There's not going to be any emergency. Your equipment's in great shape, and there's no reason why it won't continue to be that way when the cold weather hits or the summer heat hits. And the other benefit for preventative maintenance is that if they do detect a problem, and they're very honest, they're not trying to make something up. They're incredibly honest. If they find a small thing, they can correct it on the spot before it becomes a big and really expensive thing. So what's going to happen is that it extends the life of your equipment, which saves you money. So go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. This American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning dealer can help you in so many ways. Just go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com and take a look at all the information on the Priority Club. Thank you.
All right, let's do this. We're going to change topics because we saw a performance last night from Mizzou that was phenomenal. And we do spend most of our time on baseball here. We're the home of the Cardinals, so obviously that's what we're going to do. But Mizzou's earned it, man. Not just with last night, but with the season that they're having, the turnaround from last year. But boy, the exclamation point last night, putting up 110 against one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country in Alabama, picking up the win. I mean, you mentioned this in the text, Bernie. I'll let you lay it out here, but to see what they've done, turning this around in what has absolutely been the toughest basketball conference in the country this year is remarkable.
I wrote about this and did a video about this. I'm not sure, maybe 3 weeks ago or so. And I talked about, something's brewing here because I went through history and looked at teams, power conference teams that had a winless conference record. How did they do the following season? And basically, Mizzou right now has got a 500, no worse than a 500 record in the conference. And of course, they're going to do better than that because all 5 games are winnable that's left on their schedule. One more conference win, and Dennis Gates becomes the first Power 5 conference coach during the shot clock era, which began in 1985, to post a winning conference record after having a winless conference record in the previous season. Now, some Mizzou fans jumped on me, and maybe they don't like Dennis Gates. I don't know. Say, well, he's got the transfer portal. Yeah. And the transfer portal also means you lose players. Yeah. like the kid that's like scoring 30 a game in Wisconsin. He left Mizzou in the transfer portal. But the people that want to denigrate Gates and why that would be, I have no idea. Well, you have to mention he's got the benefit of the transfer portal. Those other guys didn't have that. Those other guys had a lot of other advantages that they could take advantage of, and they didn't. Dennis Gates does not have to apologize for maximizing the transfer portal and NIL. Isn't that what he is supposed to do? Isn't that what we want him to do? This is one of the great turnarounds going back to the mid-'80s that we've seen in college basketball. It's absolutely remarkable. And since January 1st, see, I like Bart Torvik a lot. Ken Pom gets, and I love Ken Pom, known him for years, but everyone cites Ken Pom, and I get it. Bart Torvik is really, really good, and that site is fun to play around on. It is really just to find out stuff about teams and their resume. Since the 1st of January, Bart Torvik's now got Mizzou at fourth best team in the nation, behind Houston, Duke, and Auburn. And this is happening in a season where the SEC is so incredibly dominant. In fact, if you use the Ken Pom ratings, this is the most dominant conference performance in a season over the last 25 years. I mean, there's no one. The second team on the list is Duke in 2004, but it's not even close. Or the ACC, I should say, in 2004, it's not even close to what the SEC is now. Does that mean they're going to win someone's going to win the national championship? No. There's randomness in the tournament. Does it mean that someone's like you're going to have like 2 or 3 SEC teams in the Final Four? No. Randomness in the tournament. You have one day where you can't shoot the ball, you're gone. But I do think this Mizzou team, I really, really believe this. When you look at how all the different things to measure a team, they can pretty much do it all, and they're very versatile and can beat you in a lot of ways. In other words, I'm saying they are a tournament-built team, and I'm excited by what's to come. Man, sorry to go on for so long. I just so fired up about talking about this.
Yeah. So, and Bernie, I'll let you do all the advanced numbers and the stats and everything. I love the story of last night. Kevin, you mentioned the point total, the not, storming the court, and Dennis Gates' great line about, hey, we need that for our NIL money.
I love that, by the way. That's the best.
Yeah.
First of all, storming the court is stupid, but secondly, that's a great way to do it and say, hey, we need the money for players. Don't get us fined $100,000.
There was a text that went out to all university students last night from the university, where one of the local establishments was letting you in without cover, and you got to, something off if you were wearing a classic. Like, it's college basketball at its best. And I love college basketball so much. Dennis Gates is such an easy guy to root for. In addition to being a really good coach, you love the way he connects with his players and truly cares for his players. He cares for the university. The stuff that he does that doesn't get reported is really, really cool. He looks up to his mentor, Leonard Hamilton, and talks about how long he has been at Florida State, and he wants to have that kind of length at Missouri. I know a lot of coaches say things like that, and generally in the world of college athletics, it's just lip service. Maybe I'm getting caught up in everything, but I believe the man when he says this stuff. Everything about Dennis Gates and Missouri basketball right now, they are so easy to root for, and it's great to see what they're doing. You
mentioned Leonard Hamilton. You want to know a fun fact? His first year at Miami was my last year at Miami. So that's how long this guy's been coaching. He's been a head coach in college basketball, and actually he actually left to go to the NBA for a little bit, but he's been a head coach in that way since I was 21 years old, and I'm 53. That's pretty good run.
Legend.
That's pretty good run, yeah.
Heck, I remember when he was Joe Hall's guy at Kentucky.
Yeah.
I went to a 5-star basketball camp, and here's Leonard Hamilton wearing glasses in his 20s, and everyone's like saying, well, that's the guy that gets all the players for Joe B. Hall. So anyway, no, he's what an institution he is. No, I agree with you, Matt. And by the way, the only reason I use numbers is I think historical perspective is like really powerful. And I just like because we say, hell, they're really good, but it's like, given what happened last year, this is an exceptional story, an exceptional turnaround.
Yeah.
But the entertainment value of this team is sky high. That thing last night, my theory is that the officials blew the whistle so many times because they were struggling to breathe because of the pace.
They're keeping up. Yeah.
Because Mizzou especially was just like it was running a 100-meter dash with the basketball. So they're blowing the whistle. It's like, I got to catch my breath. Now, I don't think so, but I'm just making a joke. And then you can't make this stuff up. Then I saw a note because Mizzou was on fire and the pace was fiery. It's just like flames coming off their sneakers, They were so fast. And then there literally was a small fire like right after the game in one of the luxury suites. And I'm like, well, no wonder. There's a lot of sparks on that court last night. I mean, this is just such a fun season. And those games at Mizzou Arena have been wonderful entertainment.
Yep. And I'll say this, and this is a little bit of an editorial as we go, but, the Gashouse Gang is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling and Game Day Men's Health. This turnaround is brought to you by the transfer portal and NIL, name, image, and likeness. And for all the negatives, for all the things that people don't like, this kind of turnaround is not possible under the old system. It is not possible. It took years to build up a program because you're not just going to get a good group of freshmen and one, kind of half-ass transfer and turn your team around, your program around in 1 year under the old ways. This is only possible because of this.
Yeah, like the people that sort of want to deduct points from Gates because he's got the advantage of this. Okay, why does Georgetown stink like rotten fruit? Why has DePaul like been losing 25 games for like in perpetuity? What about all these Power 5 teams, even with the portal and NIL? They're as bad as they ever have been, and are as bad as you can possibly be.
Yeah.
So do not take away points from a coach who knows how to work the system, which is a huge part of coaching these days.
Yeah.
I mean, so much easier.
Do we live in caves in this state? I don't get it. I don't think
it's so much easier to lose players right now with the portal than it is to go get good players.
Right.
So the fact that he's been able to retain what he has been able to retain, plus go out and get guys, it's a masterclass.
Well, and the entire point of any comparison from one era to another, you can only compare people to how they did in their time. right? So Norm Stewart's time, Norm was great in that system because every coach played by the same rules. And right now, every coach plays by the same rules. So when you give that perspective, Bernie, about this being a historic turnaround, it's always within that context. It's always that, yeah, what was happening before doesn't exist now, and this didn't exist then. But how are you compared to your peers? And to do this is still a really big deal.
I'm laughing, and I'm sorry because everything you say is right, but I'm going to say, I don't think all the coaches played by the rules on that. I covered. Yeah. We got to go. And I had another story, but I covered a legendary, famous Baltimore basketball team that had 4 future NBA players, and I would get stories by people. And in fact, I almost saw it myself. There would be head coaches coming to Baltimore to recruit these kids: Reggie Williams, David Wingate, Muggsy Bogues, guys like that, right?
Yeah,
and they always brought satchels. I thought that was interesting. I think
they had 2 carry-ons when they came off the plane, and they only had 1 when they went back.
Yeah, I think they had satchels. And hey, I asked the coach at Dunbar, Bob Wade, who's a character. I said, "Well, what's up with these satchels?" Oh, he just want him to. They want to give him some of the caps and T-shirts of like our program, just so they can. Walk around Baltimore. I said, "Oh, okay, gotcha. All right." Anyway.
That's a good capper for this one. Once you dig into some of those stories and we have more time, but obviously baseball is going to be pushing our limits when it comes to time as we go forward. It's going to wrap it up for today. Bernie and Matt will be back tomorrow on the Gashouse Gang. Obviously, Bernie will join us on DGS tomorrow afternoon as well. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate you. If you missed it, you can always go back and find us on YouTube. You can podcast us anywhere you get podcasts. Until tomorrow, this has been the Gashouse Gang.